Halfway down Chew Magna High Street, you'll find this impressive house. The Beeches was built in 1762. This film is about the family who lived here after the Second World War, and their important wartime roles, which included working closely with Prime Minister Winston Churchill.
Still the same old walls. Incredible, isn't it?
Dorcas Cresswell was born in the Beeches in 1950. She's come back to Chew Magna with David, her husband, to tell her parents remarkable stories.
All the pavements the same.
Much looks very familiar, including the Virginia creeper, which covered the front of the house.
This is what we had. Oh, it was just covered.
And the house was then painted pink.
And these wonderful, big, rosy leaves. Yes, it was pink then. That's probably the original vine too. But that picture of me gardening with Dad was on this lawn. I love that picture because I was only about one, I think. And Dad, and I was helping him dig. Yes. I think this wasn't a raised wall. So this was just a round bed. They must have put that in because I can't remember that. It's old. They must have got that from somewhere. And then on the front step there we had the two toads.
One of the stone toads is just visible in this family photograph.
That was the passage going down. That was Dad's bit.
So your
down
dad's
there,
study was down here?
Going down. Yeah. That was where all the kitchen work went on. So you walked in, go to the left, dining room. Straight ahead through there was a sitting room. Mum and Dad's bedroom. The top. Do you know I can get in round the pots? I think so. So we had a glass conservatory for the playroom, but I think whether they put that on... Oh, there it is! Conservatory was our playroom. Then beyond that was all the veg garden. Down below was all cellars. I remember it was very dark and I used to be frightened of it, but especially as I knew, there were toads living down there. I wonder what they were living on. That area was used as a bomb shelter.
During World War2, families from the top of the high street often took refuge in the basement. Luckily, there was only one direct hit on a house on Chew Hill. All street signs were removed as a precaution in case of invasion, and with most men away fighting, Chew Magna was a pretty quiet place. In Bristol, it was a very different story. Large parts of the city were heavily bombed, with many casualties. Dorcas's father, Harold Pettervell, was a major in the British Army. When he was only 18, he'd joined up at the end of World War1.
He just joined because he wanted to, but that was right at the end. And then I think he went to university, and then that's when he met up with somebody who seconded him in and said, you must come in and with the intelligence corps.
Britain was now at war with Hitler, and in June 1940, Harold was in France to help oversee the evacuation of troops from Dunkirk.
He was one of the very last to leave to organise it. And when it came to his turn to come off the beach, there was apparently somebody arrived on the beach injured, and he said that let them go instead, and that boat was sunk. So I wouldn't be here. If Dad had gone on the boat, he should have done. That's near life, isn't it?
Already in the intelligence corps, Harold was soon chosen to join a very select group.
He was handpicked to this sort of secret work, if you like, that they were sort of looking at espionage and everything, sort of just a very, very small group of them. Churchill actually handpicked 7 of them, and say the nymph was there for statue set on the desk.
Formed in September 1941, they were called the London Controlling Section and were based in Churchill's underground war rooms. Their job was to think outside the box and come up with ways to confuse and deceive the enemy.
Dad worked in the map room, so any information came through, he would be in there plotting it all out.
And he must have got to know Churchill pretty
very well. And Churchill was dyslexic, but Dad had a dyslexic problem, which he's handed down to all of us. So he took call my father to spell everything. Because Churchill had a bedroom there, right next door, so he slept there quite a bit.
And was he a difficult personality?
Churchill, yes, I think he was. But Dad, I can imagine Dad getting on very well with him. Because Dad was very unassuming, very clever, but quite, modest.
One of the group's most famous plans became known as the Man Who Never Was. Its official name was Operation Mincemeat. In 1943, Churchill was planning a massive invasion of Sicily as part of the D-Day landings. But the island was heavily defended and casualties would be high, so he wanted the Germans to think the invasion was going to be in Greece. An idea was conceived by Ian Fleming, another member of the London Controlling Section, who would go on to invent James Bond. The plan was to drop a corpse carrying fake secret papers to fool the Germans. The body of a homeless Welshman was transformed into a Marine officer. He was given fake ID and documents including love letters and theatre tickets.
Dad's secretary did the letters and got the theatre tickets.
A photo of his fake girlfriend was supplied by a clerk in the MI5 typing pool. He also carried a briefcase chained to his body which contained the fake secret military letters confirming the planned landings in Greece. On the 29th of April 1943, the body of Major Martin Williams was dropped from a British submarine off the Spanish coast. And as hoped, the false information eventually made its way to the German High Command. The papers were so convincing that Hitler moved vital troops away from Sicily, and on the 10th of July, Allied troops landed to a much reduced defence.
It worked, and of course it probably saved thousands and thousands of lives.
Over the period of the war, Harold was involved in many such schemes. He was promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel and later awarded the OBE.
He got a letter from the King at the end thanking him for everything and everything he'd done, and this group had saved so many lives. That's right, we used to come out here.
Dorcas continues to explore her old home.
Well, this used to be a shortcut down for the kitchens, and the kitchen, say, tradesmen came in that way as well, but sometimes we skipped out. I read this is the original, it's spread out. They've just, having taken it off the front. Hairdresser's here.
And then, of course, this is what you call...
The drumway.
Well, you take me up the drumway.
She is about to see the Beeches garden for the first time in over 50 years.
Yeah.
Are those 3 beech trees I can see from here?
Yeah.
Okay, that is the... Well,
that's why it's called the Beeches. And that lovely photograph of Mum with us, sitting under that tree there.
After 3 boys, Dorcas completed the family. There was a 22-year age gap between her parents. Harold met Betty during the war.
I think one of her weeks off, Dad came to some party, was taken there and met Mum. So that's when their romance started.
Even after they were married, they were not able to discuss their wartime work.
They weren't allowed to talk about it, obviously. Dad wasn't allowed to talk to Mum, Mum wasn't allowed to talk to Dad. One day they were walking through St James's Park. This officer striped all down his arm, everything, and Mum recognised him and saluted him. He ignored my mother and saluted my father. So the game was up then, so Dad had to say that Mum guessed that Dad must have been something. But they weren't allowed to talk about it at all. They're absolutely sworn to secrecy. They didn't dare say anything to, even their loved ones, what they were doing. They were so terrified of, giving something away.
But Betty was also playing an important wartime role.
She was very good at languages. So when war broke out, she decided to join the Wrens. Immediately they snapped her up and she went to Bletchley.
Bletchley Park was a grand house in Buckinghamshire where they famously cracked the German Enigma code.
Her description was amazing. She said they used to work morning to night on these dim purple flickering lights in these huts with the oil coming off the machines, and she said their cuffs were stained and the smell and the constant whir of them.
One message that Betty deciphered was to prove very significant. The giant German battleship, the Bismarck, had been wreaking havoc in the Atlantic. Churchill wanted the ship put out of action, but nobody could find it.
Mum was on her machine and she noticed the German coming in the code, and they had to wait 3 days. She reported it because the Germans, couldn't let the Germans know they'd broken the code.
From the message Betty intercepted, they could plot the ship's movements.
And so they waited till the Bismarck came out of this fjord or wherever it was, and they just pretended that by chance they'd found it.
A few days later, British aircraft torpedoed and sank the Bismarck.
But I remember as a joke, when we were small growing up, saying, Mum was saying the Bismarck and Dad was, Churchill's right hand man. You know what I mean? It was always sort of quite light-hearted banter to us. I'm very proud of them.
This photo was taken in Hertford Square, Chew Magna, on VE Day, May the 8th, 1945. Slowly, normality returned. Harold got a job as a head chemist at a pharmaceutical company in Keynsham. They moved into the Beeches and wasted no time in starting a family.
I know Mum had the four of us from 45 to 50. Christopher, the middle brother, and my younger brother, David, and myself, we were all born in the Beeches in Chew Magna. And I remember the story, Mum said that she was out with Dr. Hughes the night before. They went to some theatre or film or whatever. And I think that literally, he came back with Mum and that was it, I was born.
Harold was then 50. Dorcas has very fond memories of him.
Very loving dad, obviously older, so in some ways quite hard for him to bring up 4 children, but very sort of quiet, businesslike, thoughtful. I remember sort of working hard in the garden, doing all the lawns. I remember him sitting in a deck chair picking blackberries and taking all the fruit off to help. Mum was a sort of more active. She got her certificate for cooking for 500 for Gloucester Domestic Science. She was very good, an artist as well, lovely paintings, and encouraged us to paint, so we was always drawing and making things. Played a lot of tennis, a lot of games, and she was into lots of things. because she was a lot younger, I suppose.
Every year there was one regular reminder of Harold's wartime past.
Actually, he was in Germany when war broke out, and he did smuggle some people out, I know, because every year we used to come around this family and thank Dad at Christmas, which was lovely.
It was a very happy and lively childhood.
Being the youngest of 4, I had to do everything my brothers did, of course, including riding the bikes around and everything outdoors, fishing in the brook, climbing trees. In the Beeches we had a big den we'd made, a big platform, a tree house.
The children were allowed to roam all around the village and surrounding countryside.
We had a lot of freedom in those days, I suppose, because we felt very secure in the village and everybody knew everybody. And I think there was a lot of joy in the village as well. I think after probably wartime, people were sort of getting out and sort of enjoying life.
The Beeches was one of very few houses which had a phone, but Chew Magna had its own telephone exchange in Harford Square.
Used to ring up, wind the phone, and I think our number was 18, Chew Magna 18. But if you rang, you wanted to ring somebody else in the village to say you're going to be late or we're coming, the woman exchange will say, oh no, they've just gone off to, they've gone to Bristol for the day. They won't be back till 6 o'clock. If you'd like me to ring later, I'll leave a message for you. Everybody knew what everybody else was doing. And all the numbers were lovely and easy, only 2 digits for any number you wanted.
Further up the high street, Dorcas recalls the private school she went to with her brother David.
Golden Valley, that's where it was. In this recess here, there were the petrol pumps, 2 Miss Woods. One of them did the petrol. She was thin and skinny, and the education one was more chunky, but she had an enormous artificial wig. It was so obvious a wig. And that was the funny thing, and you remember now, when I slipped, went down the river, I slipped and fell in, she jumped in behind, and the only you can remember was her wig floating off down the river. And the which time I got out. And she was trying to rescue her. And that's why she brought me back up here and put me to bed in her long vest until Mum came to pick me up, to warm me up.
In Dorcas's time, the sisters moved the school to the centre of the village, behind Harford Square.
The King's Company was here. Yeah, this was King's. And that's Dr. Hughes' house, that white one. Dr. Hughes lived there.
Right.
The school was here. Those pictures of David and I sitting with our milk bottles, yeah, this was here. And you used to be able to walk through to the churchyard. That's all the same. And this is where you went into school. This was the school. I'd like to get some ham.
Time for one more look around the village.
Oh, it's a lovely shop. Come on, David, come have a look. You didn't have this bit, I don't think.
Yeah.
Apart from that. No, it was all sort of spit and sawdust.
Clifford, do you mind to say hello to Dorcas? She was born in the Beeches.
1950.
1950.
Because you were born in
52.
52. Was your?
Oh, we're the same. I'm 50, so we're about the same, aren't we?
Yeah, just a couple of years difference.
Yes.
Right, you left the village.
When my brothers went to Clifton College, we had the day boys, so we had to go over and move into Bristol then. So I must have been 10, I suppose, when you know.
You see some changes now then?
Yeah, more traffic.
Oh, that's mad.
Uh,
It is horrendous.
But the speed they go through.
Do you remember before the coach house
Yes.
was converted?
Yes.
There used to be a greenhouse in the front of there.
That's
didn't
right, yeah.
there? And they were sunk in the ground, weren't they?
Yeah.
You go down steps in the greenhouse
Yeah.
years ago.
I was just saying, the first school was the Miss Woods. They had the petrol
Yeah.
station,
Yes.
and then the school moved down here eventually by the vicarage. But it started up there, opposite turning down to Sacred Heart.
That's right, with the convent, that's right.
So nice to meet you.
Bye.
It's very much as it was. The railings are still the same. The steps are still the same. So yes, very much the same.
The family moved out of the Beeches in the late 1950s, but still lived in the village for a number of years before moving to Bristol. The pharmaceutical company Harold was working for in Keynsham were eventually taken over.
It was a small family firm. Finally, Cussons bought it up, and Dad went up several years to help them as a head chemist.
One product from that time has remained a firm family favourite.
All the house is full of Imperial Leather soap. I still think it's the best.
Many families have lived here over the years, but Harold and Betty Petterville are perhaps two of the most remarkable people to have called the Beeches home.